Coming up next.
I'm still kind of contemplating the abortion thing. And so I had told my friend Tiffany, whatever.
Yeah.
I made the appointment for the abortion. My ex-husband now, we fighting about it.
Right.
How you gonna abort, And Tiffany, I'll never forget the morning that I had the abortion scheduled. And she had come to pick me up. And I told her, I said, Tiffany, I said, hey, are you guys enjoying this conversation? Wait until you hear what comes up next. It's getting good. Stay tuned. One particular morning, he said, Mommy, can I pray? And I said, yeah, you can pray. And so he prayed. And as he was praying for us, he said this exactly. He said, and God, please just take me and my mommy, and my brother and sisters, because we don't want to be here anymore. And even if it's a fire, just let us all die together.
Oh, my goodness.
And
wow.
I never said that out loud.
Wow.
But it was like in that moment, God spoke to me. I broke down. And he said, he's picking that up off of you.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I can't, I cannot do this anymore. Like, I needed to hear that being said out loud. And I needed to hear it from my children. And so I had to stop praying that. And then it was like my eyes opened up and I'm thinking, okay, dang, I got my little neighbor Max over here. I'm praying for a fire. It's going to take everybody out, not just us, but, just not even thinking about that.
Right.
And so, so I stopped with that craziness. But I'm still at this point trying to get the courage up to tell these people, but I'm still kind of contemplating the abortion thing. And so I had told my friend Tiffany, whatever.
Yeah.
I made the appointment for the abortion. Me and my ex-husband now, we fighting about it.
Right.
How you gonna abort, And he didn't understand. Because they were judging him too.
Absolutely.
They didn't like him. They didn't know anything about him, but they didn't like it.
Right.
I would try to take him to church with me or whatever, and it was just the way that, wouldn't even look him in his eyes, wouldn't welcome him, So it was just a lot of things going on. But again, I'm taking the side of my pastors. And
Right.
there's something wrong with you. It ain't them.
Yes.
This is you. And so my friend Tiffany, I'll never forget the morning that I had the abortion scheduled. And she had come to pick me up. And I told her, I said, Tiffany, I said, we are not going to Little Rock. I said, we're going to the mall. And we went shopping. And I remember, just buying. I'm like, I just got to blow it.
I remember you saying you spent all the money.
Yeah. I was like, and it was like a couple of $1,000s. If I don't, then I will still be tempted to
do it.
But I know I don't need to. Okay. And so I had already done that. And it was like, this was in April 2005. Well, it was May 2005 or late April, May 2005 when they found out that I was actually pregnant. Okay. So I'm at work that morning. I get home from work to a voicemail from the pastor's wife on a Wednesday. I'll never forget. And I had a company cell phone and I had my personal cell phone, and I would leave my personal cell phone home for the kids. So, when they got off the bus, whatever, they could call me, let me know that they were good. Well, she left a voicemail on my personal cell phone. And that voicemail, now, when you're talking on a voicemail, okay? If I leave you a 30-second voicemail, I already think that's too long. I don't even like voicemails.
Right. Call me back. Bye.
But it was like a 2.5-minute voicemail. And she called my children bastards. Don't come back to our church. Don't go back to anybody's church for that matter. Leave our members alone. specifically you, Susan, because y'all were the ones who were really, like helping me. Don't come anywhere near them. You would know the Holy Spirit if he fell from the sky and landed on your head. I get tickled every time I think about it. Now I'm like, because neither would you, I guess, because he ain't falling from the sky and landed on your head. But it was that's what she said. And so in that moment that all of those things were said, I'll never forget, Holy Spirit was like, and this is what you wanted to abort your child for. And so that being the first time, but there were a lot of other things that was going on, like behind that I didn't know about. That was going on, like just the politics and everything. So that's where, my thing is with me telling them that you were there. Okay, so I'm going to give you the back now. And so you can kind of talk about what you remember that led up to that and what was going on like at that time.
Right. So when I first heard about it, I think, did you call and tell me?
I don't think I did.
No, I don't think you did. Anyway, but here's the thing, because I was one of the church leaders at the time. I was one of the leaders in the church, and so we would have meetings about whatever, our monthly meetings and stuff. And so you came up in one conversation, not like in a meeting, but they were saying we can't have, people here that's having children out of wedlock and they're not married and blah, blah, blah. She needs to go somewhere else and y'all don't need to associate. I said, wait a minute now. How you going to tell me who I can't talk to? But remember, I was in the same boat you were. We had them up on a pedestal.
Right.
That's really what it was. And so I was a church leader. I got to do what they say. Because I was raised in church that, you follow your pastors. If they ask you to do something, you do it. And, we were faithful members there, had been there. And every time the door was open, just about, we were there. My husband, our family, our kids, everything. And so I'm listening to them and I'm thinking, okay, it sounds right, but it doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wait. You have to start thinking about, okay, do I need to think for myself now? Because this sounds like a form of control. And to be honest with you, that's what it was. It was a form of control and almost cult-like. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that it was a cult, but to have the characteristic of a cult. Where we don't want you to talk to this person. You don't go over there. We don't bring certain people to the church. I'm just saying certain people didn't come to our church to speak. It was only from a certain genre. They had to be from this particular school or whatever.
And so, I'm just going to say that part.
They had to be from there. If they weren't from there, they didn't have a word for us. But now we can see that was totally left in the ditch, all the way in the ditch on one side, as somebody used to say. But I thought it was totally wrong. I was really hurt behind it because I couldn't, I thought the church was where the sick's supposed to come. Isn't the church for the sinners? That's what I thought. And so they were not going by that because like you said earlier, they were not looking at you through the lens of God, through the lens of the Holy Spirit. They were looking at you with their natural eyes. And to be a leader, that's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous to be a leader in that situation. And you have people that are following you genuinely. Now, here's the thing. There's a caveat to this. The word went forth. The word was good. I learned so much there.
Listen, I tell you now that even in Bible studies and different things, I tell them that is one thing that I cannot take away.
Yes, you cannot.
That is why my faith is so strong in the area of healing. Because remember, now
they majored on it.
I'm a name Rhema, whatever, because they were a Rhema church, and I still love Rhema ministry.
I do too.
What the people did, aside from that, whatever, that was on them. But as far as the Rhema ministry itself, that is where my faith was built.
Absolutely.
Because people say, my daughter tells me all the time, Marjorie, your faith is just so strong. It is because when I went in, like I said, I was hungry. So because I was hungry, I'm reading every book that Kenneth E. Hagin that I have one by my Bible, by my bed side. Right to this day, you gave me the
authority of the believer.
That was right there. And sometimes I'll open it up. When you just go in there and you just pick stuff up. The word. Sometimes I'll go on YouTube when I just want to hear a good word. You know what I mean? Something that's real, something that comes straight from the word. I will go and I will listen to Kenneth Hagin. So because they taught so much about healing, and they taught so much like in the word and having faith for that, my faith, I don't play
Yes.
around with no
That's what I'm talking
and
about.
all of that
None
stuff.
of that.
I'm like, nah, we ain't even play about that
At all.
So, and
Yeah.
I teach that, you know. So because I was asking, you know, one day because somebody made the comment like, you know what, your faith is so strong, you know, when it comes to that. And I had to think about, God, you know, why is it, you know, in this area, you would think that it would be stronger, maybe in like finances or things like that.
Right.
With me having gone through struggles with school mom and everything else, and Holy Spirit said, no, it's because you were birthed in a church that taught healing
Absolutely.
and to have faith for bodily healing.
Absolutely.
And I said, okay, that absolutely makes sense. And so you're right. The word was being taught.
The word was the word, and it was being taught.
When it was the word.
Yes, and I can say this. When I came to that church, I was a Christian. I was a pretty faithful Christian. I was pretty, you know, versed in the word, coming to church, already doing Bible study, all of that. So when I came there, it put another layer on there for me.
Right.
It was like, wow, I got to start looking at this healing and having faith more, you know, and doing these things and reading these scriptures and quoting these scriptures for myself and for my family. Right. So it put another layer on top of what that, you know, in a Baptist church, you come up in a Baptist church under that history, you know, a lot of those stereotypical things. Right. But it put that layer on there that I felt like I really needed to teach my children faith, to be able to be faithful with my husband, to be able to be the wife that I need to be for him, so that he could be the husband. You know, it really fit together because when you think about it, it was a family church. Yeah, it was. It really was. Another thing about that, if you didn't have a husband, you was over there.
Yeah. Because, see, I didn't have a husband.
You were over there.
So, look, I couldn't serve.
Yeah.
I couldn't do
anything.
Like, the only thing that they would allow me to do, now, I think back now, I was on the intercessory prayer. I'm like, maybe they didn't know I was on there.
How about
they weren't there on Thursday night. But... and there was only 9 of us. Yes, there.
Only a few of us.
That showed up for intercessory prayer.
Yeah.
But the only thing that they would allow me to do, with all the different things you could do in the church, you could usher, you could be a door greeter, you could work in the children's church, children's ministry, and everything else. They wouldn't let me do nothing. The only thing that I was qualified to do, according to them, was clean up the church. So you know what I did? I went every Saturday.
You did.
And I cleaned the church.
You were faithful.
Because I wanted to serve. And not only that, I'm taking my kids.
Yes.
And I'm teaching them to serve in the church.
Yes.
And then you go in there and you serve. And on a Sunday morning, you calling my cell phone asking me why the toilet paper in there backwards according to your standards. I'm
Girl,
like,
no.
What do you mean backwards?
What?
It's not backwards. It's on here the way that it's supposed to be. But yeah.
Girl, I never knew that.
Yes, I'm telling you the stuff I didn't even.
It was a lot of nitpicking, controlling situation going on there. It really was. Yeah. That was a personal issue. But anyway.
Yeah.
But going back to what we were talking about how the word truly went forward.
Yeah.
And I believe that was part of bringing us together too.
Right.
Because it caused you to think about things a little bit differently, you know, because when you're coming up in a traditional Baptist church, it's a little bit different.
It's
a little bit different.
It's way
you kind of hang over there with your people, you know, you whatever.
Right.
But being there, we were a mixed race church. So we had Hispanics that went there, whites and blacks.
Right.
But like you said, we were the majority.
Was black. Right.
We were. And I felt like we had a really good team. When we first came there, I felt like we had a really good, like we were a family.
Right.
But other things begin to come out.
Exactly.
You know, you're throwing somebody out because of this, and they threw somebody else out.
Yeah. Somebody else was.
A couple more people got. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, how is this? This is not God.
I was the first one.
Yeah.
So I was the first one, and I think that what happened to me, my situation was probably worse than some of the other ones was because one of the other girls who got kicked out, well, she was having an affair with a married man who was in the church, but they kicked her out but kept him.
Was that not crazy?
That was crazy, but that was politics. That was about the money. Yeah. Because she was single and didn't have no money. He had a good paying job. And so at the end of the day, they was all about them tithes.
Yes.
And all about the offerings.
She had to go, but he stayed.
She had to go, but he was able to stay. That was wrong.
Wow.
But when I was kicked out, and you talked about, all of us, being together and everything, when they told you guys that I had been kicked out, I could no longer be there and everything, they put the 411 out, because I'm telling you, when I would go to Walmart in different places, I would see members of the church and they would turn around and treat me like I had the scarlet
like you was
on me,
leprosy
like
or
you
something.
didn't know me. Know? And so, and the only person who did not do that to me was Richard Flournoy. He was the only person who did.
Right.
Like, he did not care. He didn't care. And your ex,
Right.
well,
And
not
Winston.
your ex-husband, because he passed,
my former,
but
he passed away.
him,
Winston.
whatever.
Yes.
But they were the only ones, and then, of course, aside from the people who actually left the church behind it. Because I remember, like, Brenda and Lamar, like, she was one of the last people.
Yes.
Because when she found out, she was so upset about it.
I know.
And I think Lamar went to the church and confronted them about it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went and confronted them about that thing. She told me about that because at that time, I don't think they were going through their own little thing.
Right.
You know, she had, told me about that. And, some other people who had gotten upset and who had left behind it because they were like, why are we kicking people out of church? Well,
let me tell you this. My husband and I, we had a conversation with them also. Girl, me and my husband sitting there, tears rolling. And
because
Winston
you
would cry.
remember how... Because you remember I told him, because he didn't know yet. Okay, so it happened on... Okay, so now I'm remembering. Because this happened, I want to say that it happened like maybe the Wednesday before Easter, or maybe it was 2 Wednesdays before
So you
Easter,
good with the
or something
timeline. Whatever
like
you
that.
say, I'm going to be like,
Yeah, I'm going to tell you how I remember that, because
times.
I know it happened on the Wednesday, because I was thinking, okay, they did this on a Wednesday and then they got out of town. So people were going to church that Wednesday night, because I didn't tell my mother, but I think my mother-in-law, because at the time I only told my mother-in-law.
Right.
And so I told her, and she was so upset. She called my mama, and my mama went to the church to confront them. They had gone out of town. They were gone. So it was like a whole, like,
it was a big thing. Yeah, it was.
Like, number one, my thing is that if you decide to kick me out of your church, at least do it with some decency. Don't leave me a voicemail.
Okay.
Call me up. Let's have a meeting.
Come in here. We're going to tell you why.
And let me explain. Because you know what? If that had been the case, hey, I was good with everything else. I would have been good with that
too. Yeah.
But
they didn't even give you the opportunity. Nothing. No rebuttal. No anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It was like, speaking so horribly of me.
Yes.
And of my
and let that be the last word.
Exactly. Yeah, it was definitely a drop the mic type of thing or whatever.
Wow.
And then, like I said, going to places and seeing different people that we done prayed together on the intercessory prayer to everything. And now you don't know me.
Been at their homes, all kind of stuff.
Everything. Like, everything. And so that thing right there, I think that kind of hit me. And it's still certain ones of them to this day. Don't
Still
speak
to this
me.
day.
Because I've forgiven you, but let's just keep that same
you can stay
energy,
over there.
because we're not going to speak now that you say, because I saw puppet, the
Absolutely.
the control.
Yes.
So now that they say it's okay, and that they came back, from what I understand, came back after some years after we met face to face.
Right.
After, 4-5 years after
later.
it happened, and so let's talk about that. And how that led up. Because I'm going to tell you, God was... So after they kicked me out, and then afterwards, I went to another church because my cousin invited me to come to another church.
Right.
Wound up getting kicked out of that one too. But that one was for a different reason.
Yeah.
I wasn't pregnant then.
Exactly.
It's because I'm in this word. When anytime you studying and
it was
you
a threat.
searching the word and stuff like that, I'm writing for a local magazine, so my name out there. I'm posting stuff in the newspaper, whatever. And so the first lady, she thought that she could bring me in and control me. And so when she would say certain things, whatever the case is, it was just one time, or whatever. She called me and asked me some questions, and I always say, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me.
Right.
If I'm quiet, leave me alone.
Right.
And just let me do what I'm doing, because we good. Because when you ask me, I'm going to tell you, and you're probably not going to be prepared for it.
Right.
And so I'll talk about that when I bring, Renee along.
Yes.
But back to the first church, when that whole thing happened, so I've been kicked out of church. Mind you, I'm in the Word, I'm studying. God is like, okay, I want you to start doing prayer walks in the schools.
Yes.
Okay, you remember that?
I do remember,
okay.
yeah.
So, and I was like, okay, prayer walks in the schools. Okay. And so I'm getting together these schools. I had them, four different counties. prayer walks on one accord, 9 a.m.
Yep.
on a Saturday
I remember
morning.
that.
God gave me the whole
Yes.
prayer. You need to have a prayer leader on these different campuses. And I want the prayer leader to begin at 9 a.m. They read this prayer. This is what they pray. So you got all of these schools, you know, they're being prayed for on
At the
one
same
accord,
time.
in
Yes.
unison, the same prayer.
Yes.
Or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, that's powerful. And so orchestrating those, and I never forget the day I'm in my office at work, and he said, call Pastor so-and-so and ask him to head a prayer walk. I was like, you say what? Don't you remember he kicked me out of church?
Get
like,
out of
well,
here.
we don't talk, you know?
Wow.
And so at that time, thank God, now going back to Rhema and Kenneth Hagin, I know you heard him say before that he lived a fasted lifestyle.
Yes.
So during that time, I was living a fasted lifestyle. So I'm up every morning at 5 a.m. and I'm fasting between 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. I had to be at work at 7. I'm fasting between 5 and 11, and I'm praying. I'm studying the scriptures
Right.
and everything. So, you know, anytime you're doing that and you're doing that 5 days a week, you know, your flesh is down here and spirit
Exactly.
is up here.
Yes.
So even though I question God, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to do it. So I remember when I called him up, you know, or whatever, and he was surprised to hear me, you know, and I asked him, told him how I was doing, and he was like, well, yeah, you know, sure, we'll do it. And I was like, okay. So I gave him the thing. As a matter of fact, I think that it was 2 times God had me to have him to lead the prayer walks, okay? So in that, now I'm thinking that, oh, okay, this is evidence of my healing.
Yes.
It's evidence
Growth.
that growth. Hey, I'm
Moving forward.
them.
Yes.
And everything. And the stuff hit the fan one night on social media, on Facebook. And I'm going to tell you when it was. It was when Obama, when they announced that they had gotten Osama bin Laden. And I wasn't on Facebook that much at the time.
Right.
And so this one night I'm sitting at home and I'm like, oh, you know, and I posted something. It was like so general, like we got, you know, Osama and on Obama's watch, because I was glad that he had done something, because a lot of stuff that I felt like he should have did, he didn't do, but that's something different, you know, so I was happy about that. And so then the daughter of the pastors who had kicked me out of church had came in and decided that she was going to comment on my thing.
Ooh-wee.
And it triggers.
I remember that.
And when it triggered, boy, I got to going. And we going back and forth. And then because it was like what was said, all I heard was the judgment and the hypocrisy. Maybe the racism.
Some of that.
That I experienced, and I felt like those things was why I was kicked out of church. And I'm like, okay, I'm hearing
it's coming
this,
back again.
and it's coming back.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. And I'm not in your
and I'm
church
about to nip
now.
it.
I'm not. And, you know, and so I'm going back and I'm calling her out on stuff too, that I've seen her post or whatever the case is. You felt so grubby because a man came to you and you didn't have your married ring. Or, why didn't you use that as an opportunity to invite him to church? You know, whatever. But it was like different things like that. And so then I get a private message from the pastor's wife. Now, okay, so it was the pastor's wife who actually kicked me out of church. It wasn't the pastor. Okay. So I get a message from her, and she invites me to come and to meet with them. Oh, that's just my cup of tea now, because I'm not the same little old Katina that y'all put out of church. So I said, yes, let's set it up.
Next time on Coming Out of the Hedges.
They're stating their case again for why it is that they kicked me out of church. You pulling up scriptures and everything else, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening or whatever. And so then when I began to speak, you know, hey, are you guys enjoying this conversation? Wait until you hear what comes up next. It's getting good. Stay tuned.